If you're anything like me, you'll appreciate some avant-garde strangeness in your music, and it doesn't come much more experimental and curious than Hungarian stalwarts of the genre, the Catafalque. Coming to us now with their 12th studio album that I'm not even going to try and attempt to pronounce correctly. Is there still enough creativity left in this old dog, or has the spark long since gone from this Eastern European workhorse? Guys, gals and non-binary pals, my name is Ian, this is Rhine Signatures, and we're once again opening the lid on the best new releases in prog rock and metal. I've been a pretty big fan of the Catafalque for a little while now, getting my start with the band back in 2016 with the still unchallenged and unopposed masterpiece that is Meta. I fell for its sharp angles, its deep and methodical instrumental runs, and the overall strangeness of it that gave it a vibe unlike anything else I'd listened to at the time. Obviously, since then, I've expanded out my horizons and I've listened to a lot more in the progressive avant-garde metal space, and while there's been a lot of different bands and albums that I've enjoyed along the same level as the Catafalque, you never really forget your first love, so I've always seen the band as a place to fall back to. Now, I went and sunk my teeth into Geometria, Naive, Verdak and Alfold as they trickled out over a pretty reliable release schedule, and honestly I loved each and every one of them. They all managed to showcase different parts of Tamas Katai's altogether rather extraordinary musical brain. But I couldn't help but keep glancing back over my shoulder at the album that started it all for me, Meta. I mean, okay, I know that wasn't his first album under the Catafalque name, and I know a lot of veteran fans will look to records like Tuno Ido Talat, Roko Hasa Radio, or Rengeteg as his finest hours. But there's always something to be said about your own personal starting point, and for as much as I found genuine satisfaction in virtually all of Katai's output, I would inevitably end up comparing them all back to Meta. But now here we are with his 12th studio album, which translates to Beautiful Dreams Come Next, and I think I'm almost ready to shake off my hang-ups and slot this one right next to Meta, and maybe, just maybe, move it above. What's really struck me while reviewing this album is that it feels remarkably different to what I've come to expect from the Catafalque, but also incredibly warming and familiar. Each album tends to speak with its own language and has formulated its own identity, wherein it's possible to sum up each album with only a couple of words. 12, as it shall be referred to from now on, manages to do something that I often thought impossible. It summarises Katai's work in a succinct and punctual manner whilst also sounding singularly unique, modern, forward-thinking and individual. There's flashes of the electronica elements played with on Naive, the blackened death metal of Meta, the atmospherics of Verdak, and accessibility and short-form structuring of Alfold, and of course the traditional folk elements of his homeland that has punctuated and underlined his entire career. It makes 12, curiously, a perfect starting point for just about anyone. Normally, when you're this deep into your career, the thought of picking up new fans off your latest output is generally not considered a thing. But what the Catafalque have managed to do here is craft an album that somehow simultaneously represents a casual, easy listening album of surface level enjoyment, but below the shiny outer leaf showcases some of his deepest, most richly layered and intricate work to date. Now, I'm not going to try pronouncing anything here unless I'm pretty sure I can get it reasonably well done, so bear with me a little bit. The opening track on 12 is just about as good a showcase for what to expect on the album as it gets. A distinctive guitar tone opens up to haunting female chanting vocals, segueing into a brutal, melodic and infectious driving riff before Katai himself steps up to the microphone and pushes forward some of the honestly best vocals of his career. Now, I may not be able to understand a single word he's saying, but the moods and atmospheres he's playing with here are distinct and relatable, speaking volumes of how well the music is written to be able to convey the themes of the album so well despite the language barrier. It ducks and dives and moves through brutality and innocence with a deft grace that we've all come to expect from the band, and in just over 4 minutes you're being told exactly what this album is, but yet there is still so much on here that you just will not see coming. And much like the best of XII's work, it's the left turns, the unexpected elements and off-kilter expressions that mark him out as such a fascinating and well-rounded songwriter. It would be all too easy to just fill an album with peaks and valleys of spine-chilling ethereal moments and bone-crushing brutality, but that's never been enough for thy Catafalque, and you really feel the variety on 12 in ways that other albums in this musical space simply haven't been capable of. Second track, Mindanevo, is definitely one of the heavier songs on offer, as well as one of the longer ones at 6.5 minutes. But for all of its freneticism, there's elements of subtle electronica and folk music peppered throughout the runtime to keep things from ever feeling stale. And as we drop into the last minute and a half or so of the song, we're suddenly 1,000 miles away from the initial salvo, now dancing through the hallways of an abandoned cathedral at night or something. It's honestly incredible to bear witness to just how well the tone of the album ebbs and flows across its 50 or so minute runtime, and just how much it keeps you guessing. Now, while part of me misses the beefier runtime of albums like Meta and Vadak, 12 certainly doesn't feel like it's, shortchanging you or anything, slimming down any long and extended atmospheric runs in favour of shorter, snappier, more immediate tracks. The 3-hit combo of Nyarfa Nirfa, Lydia Hoz and Vakond is one of my absolute favourite stretches of music in the whole discography, but that 3-track run alone is barely longer than the song Molo off of 2021's Vadak. But it shows how interesting you can keep this kind of avant-garde music, even when you're constraining yourself to shorter runtimes. The folkier elements in the latter track of Vakond are so full of life and energy that it is nearly impossible to sit still or wear a frown when it gets going. The sheer range of guest musicians on the album is staggering, and if I was to list them all, then this review would probably be pushing like 20 minutes in length or something crazy. But their contributions to tracks like this one really help 12 to have a bold identity of its own amidst a discography that is already full of dynamic creativity from start to finish. When the chips are down, it's hard to look at this album without considering it to be a true late-career masterpiece. The infectious riffing and catchy chorus of Vilagnak Vilaga, the broad sweeping majesty and atmospherics of Kodkirali, the bold and defiant confidence in the vision of the album's theme that runs beautifully through the core of the whole experience makes for a record that is just begging for you to press the play button over and over. But I can't finish this gushathon without talking about the cover of Hungarian band Omega and their track Babylon. This closes out the album, and it is such an absolute belter. I wasn't familiar with the song before hearing this cover version, but now after having listened to them both one after the other, I do kind of feel that Thy Catafalque have done a Johnny Cash's Hurt with this song, really making it into their own with what they've done. The vocals are absolutely sublime, channeling some real Blind Guardian vibes and making this one of the most mosh pit-worthy tracks of the 2020s so far. And I sincerely hope I get to catch this one in a live setting at some point. But of course, it's not perfect, as nothing ever really is. There's a couple of gripes I have, but honestly, it's nothing that major. Saxophone haters are going to be jump scared towards the end of the 5th track though, and for as much as I do personally love a little bit of sax, something about the tonality and implementation of it here kinda juts out at a weird angle for me and throws me a little off balance. So for those of you who don't vibe with the sax, you have been well and truly warned. I also personally wish there was a little bit more black metal on offer. I've always felt that Thy Catafalque are at their strongest when they're getting a little filthy, and from a relative perspective, there isn't a whole lot of that going on during 12. For better or for worse, depending on your own preferences, there's a lot more folksy and electronica elements over anything else on here, so plan your listening accordingly. I do also feel that the way the album ends on the title track is a little curious. It doesn't feel like much of a kind of climactic ending piece, almost giving me the impression that things are about to launch into another, more fitting way of closing the album out. I mean, yes, it does segue into the aforementioned superb bonus track of Babylon, but that too feels like an odd stopping piece for the album. And loath as I am to come back to comparing another Thy Catafalque album to Meta again, the selfish parts of me misses having a really big, long, meaty track. The longest song on here is 8 minutes, which is reasonably girthy, yes, but I'm talking about, the 20+ minute long epics. Meta spoiled me with Malmok Jarnak, which to this day remains the band's crowning glory for me, and it's been nearly 10 years now, and Thy Catafalque have yet to deliver an opus even close to that titan. I was hoping that on this album, the most succinct summary of Catai's career thus far, that we might have had another beefy boy to tide me over, but alas, it was not to be. When it comes down to it though, I really am nitpicking to the extreme here. I enjoyed 2023's Alfold, but I didn't love it, And now, a mere 12 months later, Thy Catafalque has given us a record that feels a decade in the making with how comprehensive and all-encompassing it feels with its scope and ambitions. It is not often that a band this deep into their career, nearly 25 years strong, can still push out such extraordinary results. Your move next, Ackerfeld. So, what else can I possibly say about Thy Catafalque's 12? Honestly, between all of us here, I didn't expect albums coming out this late in the year to be threatening my year-end list. But dang it all, if Tamas Catai isn't forcing me to nervously rethink my carefully laid out and meticulously planned final challenges of 2024. Like I say, I've been a huge fan of this band for the better part of a decade now, and they certainly never steered me wrong. But it's very rare for something from Thy Catafalque to take this short of a time to make this big of an impression on me. They've always been a band who I end up appreciating in the long run, always feeling like the band whose output is destined for the future classic. But 12 has been so immediately enjoyable and focused that it is genuinely making me question if Meta is still my favourite album by the band. You can probably guess here that my recommendation is absolutely to grab this one in physical format. Now, I've been lucky enough to have the promo of this one for about 3 months, I think it is now, so I've had plenty of time to decide if I'm just in the honeymoon period of this record or not. But I can assure you that if this is your first or your 12th time with Thy Catafalque, an incredible time is waiting for you behind the veil of Tamas Catai's continually incredible imagination. This is all, of course, guys, just my opinion, so if you loved or hated this one, please talk to me about your experiences with the album in the comments down below. Please do drop me a thumbs up if you like the video, please do tell your friends all about little old me, and please do throw me a subscription if you've been enjoying my content so far. But until next time, guys, as always, keep your rhyme signatures pretty odd.